Good morning, and welcome to our first fully live broadcast on the NRG series online. I'm Joe Lossett, and we're going to be playing Legacy here today. We'll be here all day. We're going to have 6 rounds of Swiss, and we're going to play through the top 8. And I'll be joined by a series of guest commentators, starting for the first 3 rounds with Tannon Grace. So let's go ahead and bring him in.
Hey, Joe, how's it going?
Nice slide in, nicely timed. How are you doing this morning?
It's like the sports broadcasters, when they pan over and you like slide your chair in. I had to make an entrance.
Perfect. Yeah, no, just like Monday Night Football. It was great. So
how are you doing, buddy? By the way, and interesting. I love seeing you with like this full luxurious head of hair. I see that you've really taken to quarantine life.
Yeah. So I actually did get my hair cut a few weeks ago, but I told I got my hair cut in my stylist's garage. And I was like, you know what? Don't cut it short like normal. And she kind of laughed and thought I was joking. I was like, no, serious, just like grow. And she didn't really like that. But yeah, so it's actually, I'm getting, everyone's experiencing new things during the coronavirus stuff. And for me personally, one of my new experiences is having hair get in my eyes. I've never had this before. And it's just, I kind of get a kick out of it. So yeah, I'm just letting it grow for now, with no particular purpose or reason in mind, but yeah, that's what passes for excitement in my life right now. How are you? What's going on with you? How are you doing?
Doing great. It's stuck at home a lot, obviously working from home, thankfully. I'm pretty blessed in having that opportunity and stuff too. But just taking a lot of entertainment as I can. So I'm actually really looking forward to today. My favorite format in all of Magic is Legacy, and when I think back on, my career playing in Magic stuff, when I look back on the fondest on what I've done, and the most fun that I've had and what I identify with most, like most players are like, I'm a modern player, or
sure,
I'm a standard player, or I'm a limited player. For me, I'm a legacy player. So I'm really looking forward to today. And, when I was looking over, kind of doing research, getting ready for today, looking at, what's going on new, there are some new cool decks. I'm excited about that, which doesn't happen super often in Legacy. Like we still have, the old guard, which I guess I'm one of those. I'm a Delver player at heart, and that is what a lot of people think is the best deck and probably the most represented deck we'll see today. I'd be kind of surprised if it wasn't. But there is some room in the format for innovation, especially with the new sets that have come out in the last, I'd say about year and a half. I think the overall power level of the cards has been absurdly high. And so we've seen a lot of new cards not just slot their way into Legacy, but starting to make new archetypes completely.
Or just change up what's been going on. Certainly, I think we'll see a couple cards from M21 this weekend, and the other recent sets, like you were saying, I played a league a couple days ago, just kind of get myself more in shape for doing this coverage this weekend, and the match I lost was to Doomsday, which Thassa's Oracle is a really nice, clean win condition in that deck now.
And that's one of those decks that when I look at the deck list, it makes my head explode. Like, I am not smart enough to play that deck. Like, I am not a person that could play that one. I leave that one for the other people. I actually had a friend who was going to play in this, and he was like, yeah, I think I'm up playing Doomsday. Do you want to see my list? And I just thought I was like, no. Don't send me that.
I think the Doomsday lists are cleaner than they were 5 years ago because they're not Stormwinds anymore, so it's less messy and they get to play
moving parts.
Yeah. So like I was saying, we're gonna get things started in a couple minutes here with the first round. In the meantime, our production is getting some stuff cleaned up. It sounds like from the chat, someone says the audio is a little shaky, but maybe that was just in the transition. I'm not sure. But it sounds like so we do have. I think we do have our first round pairings ready to go. So if we have Decklists for our first match, here we go. We're going to have Justin Brickman playing Rug Delver, which is a deck that you have a ton of experience with. Initially, just glancing at this list, what may stand out for as a longtime Legacy player, we're not playing a full set of Tarmogoyfs. We have a couple Hooting Mandrills, which is another way to take advantage of the graveyard to jam down an efficient creature. We have Dreadhorde Arcanist, and then we have kind of what's become the new standard set of permission is we have, in addition to Force of Wills, we have a couple Force Negations also.
Tell me if you're surprised. A Delver deck is the best deck in Legacy. I mean, what's old is new again. What's new is old again. And I mean, it's a tale as old as time in Legacy since the card's been printed. Delver is the best deck. Now, when I look at this one, yeah, definitely the things that stand out. No full set of Termagants, but it makes sense, right? Like, there's a lot of ways to deal with this efficiently in the format now. It's not the end-all be-all creature that it used to be, and it doesn't accrue any kind of value once it's been played or attacks, kind of like Dreadhorde Canis does. It's not a blue card like Delver of Secrets is, which matters with Force of Negation and Force of Will, like you were talking about. And one of the other big things that stand out is that 3-drop that's in the deck. And generally, these decks don't play a lot of 3-drops. If you're looking at Oko, Thief of Crowns, in the only format that he's legal in, kind of anymore, and for good reason. I think this is another card that we could have on the chopping block in the next year or two if this format ever gets looked at again for something like that. But I think about what as little as a year ago we had Ren and 6 running the format, and now we've got Oko kind of running things. So looks like we're going to look at the other deck list here as well, because I could talk for way too long about Rug Delver.
I mean, I've been putting a lot of work in recently, getting ready for the Pro Tour Finals next week. And kind of when I scroll through the available cards in Standard that are in those sets, it always jumps out. Oko is still technically in a Standard set, which is just crazy. So Tony Murata playing mono green Post, kind of one of the banes of the existence of Miracles back in the day when I was always playing it. So we're seeing here again the Cloud Post, Glimmer Post, Vesuva Thespian stage engine, where we just need to make the first Cloud Post drop, then we can clone it a few times with our other lands, make just an absolute ton of mana, and ramp out stuff like Ulamog, which, I mean, that's going to end the game quickly, if not, Emrakul. We have actually a full 15 mana Emrakul in here, and then just green ramp to tie it together.
A lot of cool things going on in this deck too, right? Like a lot of new cards. You have Once Upon a Time in here, Elvish Reclaimer, and you have Allosaurus Shepherd, which I was going to say that one's brand new, right? That's from the new Jumpstart set. These are like impossible to find on Magic Online right now, so I'm pretty happy that we actually got one in the deck list here today. I saw people were like willing to pay upwards of $200 for them last week because you could only get them out of treasure chests, and I think the drop was like 1 in 3,000 or something like that, some ridiculous number. As a Delver player, when I see this matchup, it scares the bejesus out of me. This is one of those matchups where if any card resolves, you're probably dead. You cannot beat pretty much anything resolved from this deck. But one thing that is big out of this, and that you're seeing less and less in Legacy, is Wasteland's relevant in this matchup, right? You see the full Pithing Needles in the main deck here, and I assume that the card that's going to be named the most is going to be Wasteland in this matchup. Yeah,
and I think even so, maybe in the dark.
For sure.
We're not playing in the dark here because we have deck lists. Mm-hmm. But if we were in paper, you just have Turn 1 Needle. You're just naming Wasteland most of the time. So we're going to be watching from Justin Brickman's perspective. We're having Force Perspective, which is kind of a style I like for coverage events, where you can really kind of put yourself in the shoes of one of the players, think about what you would do in their spot without the knowledge of what's in the opponent's hand. So Justin on the Delver side with an opening hand with a Wasteland, like you were saying, which is going to key in the format, and a bunch of pressure and no counters, which probably is a good thing when you're facing a deck that's just ramping and playing lands.
Right. And when I look at this opening hand, I think this is a pretty good one, right, in this matchup, especially since, like you said, open deck list going into the tournament. So these players do know what they're playing against, and you've got a quick clock here with the turn 1 Delver Secrets. You've got some cards where you can find what's going on in Ponder and Brainstorm, where you can kind of figure out what's going on and maybe find some more pieces that can interact with what you're going to be playing against. But having the Wasteland is a big deal here. No way to interact with a Needle here. So if there's a turn 1 Needle, then the Wasteland is going to be kind of bad. And we're just going to be relying on the full-on just beat down game plan. But it looks like it is just Expedition map for the turn 1 artifact.
Yeah. Although with a basic forest, the Needle's not required immediately. But yeah, so we're going to see here, okay, picking up a Daze is nice. And then now once the Wasteland, if the Cloud Post to come down turn 1, Justin would have faced an interesting decision, like, do I waste? But if I do, maybe I can't get my Tarmogoyf down ever because I don't have another land. Mm-hmm. But, the Delver flips and things just, this is a great setup for Justin here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure what I would have done if they led on Cloud Post here. I think I waffle back and forth with being really aggressive with the Wastelands, but I think what you do is you probably lead your turn off with either Ponder or Brainstorm and see if you draw another land from there and then make the decision from there.
Sure. So we are going to see a Ponder here. Not too excited about what we're revealing here, but but still have to be happy about our hands. And we want to get some spells in the graveyard so the Tarmogoyf's hitting for more than just 1 damage.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, maybe look weird to do some main phase 1 stuff here. In Magic, it's like generally like the phase where you do the least amount of things in Magic, but when you have cards like Tarmogoyf in play, you want to make sure that these cards get into your graveyard and you're attacking for as much as possible. And this is a pretty ideal start for the Delver side. A lot of pressure, a wasteland like we talked about. It's not being relevant just yet, but, you know, and some soft permission. Days could actually go a long way. And, you know, the pinnacle turn where the mono green ramp player really needs to get that one thing to happen, that one thing to resolve. Well, this Days is sitting there. And like you said, there's a Cloud Post in play now, so that Wasteland is looking mighty good.
Yeah, we do have Reclaimer available, so we're going to want to be careful in the timing of our Wasteland, and we drew another copy, so that's going to be pretty nice. But yeah, the kind of, I imagine from Tony's side here, we're going to be planning on, it's tricky, we can't, you know, use the Elvish Reclaimer, which you see on the screen right there, to, in effect, protect the Cloud Post from a Wasteland by sacrificing in response to get another copy. But we can't do that and activate Expedition Map, and with the Wastelands on the board, we're kind of, I mean, this pressure's mounting, and there's kind of, our resources being demanded in multiple different ways before we even get around to casting our threats, and we're at 3.
Yeah, I was going to say, the mono green player actually played this game really well in protecting their non-basic lands as much as possible from Wasteland. The problem is the clock is so fast from the Delver side. You know, turn 1 Delver, turn 2 Tarmogoyf, turn 3 Tarmogoyf, and like you said, like, it was even pretty good that they didn't have a lot of permission on their side, because you want all this pressure early and then use your cantrips to find, you know, a Force of Will or a Daze, you know, just the exact right spot.
Mm-hmm. So Glimmer Post here is going to gain a couple life for the green 12 post player, but what are we even, I mean, there are ways, I believe there's a Glacial Chasm in the deck, so that's a tutor target that can stave off death, but that's not going to survive Wastelands being in play. And okay, we draw Chain Lightning, and now we actually are going to be able to assemble red mana. This looks tough. It looks like Justin is likely to win the game right now.
Yeah, as I was saying, I try to think of ways that crop rotation, like, you know, crazy crop rotation plays can maybe get him out of this. But like you said, Glacial Chasm isn't out here. We're in chump mode on the mono green side. That's a bad spot to be in. A
Bajuga Bog would eliminate a lot of the incoming damage, but this Delver plus Chain Lightning is still going to be enough. We see blocks here. These Reclaimers aren't going to be able to get a 3rd land in the graveyard this turn. Actually, that may not be true because of the Wasteland. So maybe these Reclaimers will get bigger, but that's still not likely to be enough. And even then, the Reclaimers surviving combat doesn't mean that Tony's going to survive the turn.
Yeah, he's thinking about it looks like the other player's thinking about Wastelanding now, but yeah, you can actually just wait on this. You don't want the Reclaimers to become bigger, like you said.
So damage resolves, the Reclaimers both die, and at this point, with those Wastelands on the board, Justin could probably just pass the turn and end up winning very safely, but we may as well finish things off here with Chain Lightning. And that's going to be the end of it for game 1 of our tournament today. Justin Brickman takes it down. So we're going to briefly look at the sideboards here. The players are playing, you know, these are live matches, so they're going to be starting whenever they're ready. But just quick glance at the sideboard, we see a Colossus, which is a new card. That's kind of neat. But what do you see that you might want in this matchup?
Yeah, I was going to say the Colossus actually definitely surprised me. That's a card I haven't seen be too, used in Legacy a lot lately, but you're starting to see it kind of creep up. It definitely has its implications. A Braid and Winter Orb definitely stand out to me in this matchup. A Braid, not so much for killing creatures. While you can do 3 damage to a creature in this matchup, you definitely want to making sure that you interact with Pithing Needle and stuff like that in this matchup. There's a lot of pesky artifacts on the mono green side that you want to be able to interact with. That card being able to do that's pretty big. And Winter Orb is a big one here because not only does it slow down your opponent, because most of your spells are going to be 1 mana, right? Like Oko's not huge in this matchup. You want to make sure that you resolve stuff like Delver Secrets in 1 or 2 mana is enough for you. Your opponent needs to tap a lot of lands for things here, and a lot of their lands come into play tapped.
Yeah.
So this is a real beating.
That's just so unreasonable when...
Right.
Yeah, this slowing down of Winter Orb, and then your lands come into play tapped, so it's like you basically didn't even play them for the turn.
Yeah, it's like you're playing 3rd.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's going to be rough. Those are some nice cards. Now, the 12-host side obviously is going to come into this knowing that Delver's a popular deck and needing answers for it. Now, we do know about the set of Pithing Needle's main deck, which we didn't see in game 1, which are going to play a big role. But let's see. We have Carpet of Flowers on the board. that's a way to generate a lot of mana, despite being wastelanded. So that's something.
One of the more strange cards that I've ever run into. So a lot of my legacy experience was learning on the job, as you say, where I would just go play in big tournaments and just try to figure it out there. And Carpet of Flowers is always a funny one for me because it doesn't work the way that it's worded on the card. You actually have to like choose a main phase and all this crazy stuff. There's a Tabernacle on the sideboard that's probably going to come in here and maybe be a part of this matchup. We'll have to see. What's going to go on. But the mono green player being on the play this game, that's when it gets really scary for the Delver deck.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we do see another Wasteland, so that's nice. We don't have a Delver this time, which is probably the card you want to see most aside from Wasteland. But we'll see. And then we see a Carpet. Now, this already is interesting. I imagine a lot of the time you want to wait on the Carpet to allow the other player to establish themselves and then get the mana benefit. But we go ahead and jam it out here on turn 1, giving ourselves the full ability to use the extra mana immediately in their turn, and Justin ponders, and I mean, I'm sure Justin would prefer not to put an island on the board, but that's just not a possibility in this deck.
Yeah, very interesting ponder there too. You saw 2 more threats with Delver Secrets and Tarmogoyf and a land. While I think it would be good to keep one of the threats here just to get a little more pressure in play because General Arcanist by itself is not enough. We do have a Hooting Mandrills now. I do like that shuffle quite a bit from the Delver player because you want to find some more interaction because something big is going to happen from the mono green player this game because there's already the Carpet of Flowers in play. Mm-hmm. Interesting point you made about waiting on it. It is a card that you can wait on and still get a lot of value out of, kind of as like a pseudo Dark Ritual type effect that stays around and happens every turn.
Yeah, Carpet of Flowers, if some of you are unfamiliar with Legacy, or even if you are familiar but have not played with Carpet of Flowers, like Tannon was alluding to earlier, you get the choice of main phase to add mana. So you can, in fact, cast the card during main phase 1 and then choose to get the mana during main phase 2 and effectively have a ritual for your turn for the number of islands on the other side of the board. And then we see Greenstone for 1 with the extra mana to get the Elvish Reclaimer, and then Pythonino comes down and predictably named Wasteland. And now things are looking quite a bit different than game 1. I think Tony is probably feeling pretty good right now.
Yeah, definitely. And there's an interesting turn last turn about playing Dreadhorde Arcanist or using Lightning Bolt to take care of an Elvish Reclaimer before it got the ability to start, sacrificing lands and doing, what the green deck's trying to do. I got to say, I kind of shied aside of just playing Arcanist and trying to win the game from here because you're probably not winning with what you've got going on so far, and you're a little behind. Mm-hmm. Plus, if he wants to, he's actually got the opportunity to bolt twice this turn with the Arcanist if he wants to. So
yeah, clearing out both those Reclaimers would be a great use of Justin's turn, even though we're only getting it from 1 actual damage. Now, with all the mana open, now the Tony only has 2 cards in hand. But with all of the mana available, that could turn into, activations, putting Cloud Post on the board. And if those 2 cards include a Primeval Titan or something in that scale, that's going to do plenty of work. I mean, there is an OCO to try and deal with them, but some of those cards, a lot of those cards, the triggers are what win the game. It doesn't matter if the body sticks around or not.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's like I said, alluded earlier to in the pregame. If anything resolves from this deck, and I don't necessarily mean the 1-drops, right? Like, obviously they're good, but if anything of substance resolves in the mono green deck, you're not coming back from that. Mm-hmm. If you're playing a deck like this in Legacy where you're trying to resolve 6, 7, 15 mana spells, they're going to win the game when they resolve. You don't need to untap and do something else most of the time. So yeah, definitely that kind of stuff's going on for here for sure. I was say getting some more pressure in play here, getting the Delver Secrets in main phase 2. It's one of those things, like I said, yeah, you get to clean up both Reclaimers this turn, but was that enough at this point? And it looks like it might not be, because how much mana does the mono green player have here on their side? This is a lot too much math for me this early in the morning.
Well, it's that's a bad sign for us then, because things could get much more out of control than this. Yeah. But we have 5 from 5 from the lands, and then conveniently, since we sacrificed the forest, we still have the Carpet of Flowers that can make colored mana. Mm-hmm. So I believe we're looking at 7, which is actually no 8. So it allows us to Green Sun for a Primeval Titan with 1 mana floating to pay for a potential daze. And this is good. We're gonna just get another Cloud Post and the Eye of Ugin. Okay, so that's gonna mean we have boatloads of mana next turn and the ability to tutor up threats if we don't have one. Mm. Justin needs to win this game real quick, and with Tony at 22, that seems unlikely.
Yeah. This Force of Will have been, a lot better last turn. And I like how you pointed this out. You kind of like saw the future here with, there's an Oko in your hand to answer this Primeval Titan, right? But that's not enough with what just happened. This trigger is going to be what actually kills you, and the fact that there's an Eye of Ugin in play. And this 3/3 is actually good enough to kind of hold back your Dread Arcanist, so you're not exactly attacking for a lot. I mean, look at the mono green player. They're at 22.
Yeah, I mean, we can Oko the Python Needle also to enable the Wasteland, but that means the Primeval Titan survives and attacks, which is great. We can knock out one land and then they get two more.
Yeah, this is what we call the squeeze, right? Like you're getting hit on all sides, and you're not going to be able to keep up with it.
Yeah, this is, I mean, it's fair play. I mean, game one, Justin did everything he wanted to and completely ran down the Dwarfos player, and this is the reverse, and we're going to see what the other deck's capable of if this Primeval Titan by itself isn't enough on its own, which it very well might be.
I just love that this game is like the who's list of banned cards in Modern. You've got Cloudpost, Ponder, Oko, just a litany of cards. Some other ones that you could maybe even start adding to the list later on and stuff too. And
Eye of Ugin also. Yeah,
I was to say Eye of Ugin. I was getting there. Yeah, I was going to say that gets attacked by the Wasteland here. You said the Pithing Needle turning into a 3/3 elk here, so the ability doesn't happen anymore. But here's the thing: I think the mono green player could like not resolve a spell for the rest of the game and might still be able to win.
Yeah,
just with the creatures that are in play, because Primeval Titan's going to get another trigger here, and they're going to get in. I mean, the Oko isn't going to survive this turn, so the bodies that are in play are going to be too much, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we could almost just attack face and be fine, but yeah, I'm sure the Oko will be picked off. And even in lower power, in Modern, maybe even in Standard back, years ago, if Primeval Titan got its trigger twice, just forget about it. There's no way you're beating that. It's just too much. Mm-hmm. And here in Legacy, we see now we're searching up Tabernacle and another Cloudpost. We just have, we have 10 mana floating right now, plus 13, plus 2. We actually cast Emrakul, which I would guess got boarded out, but...
Oh, just a Kozilek, no big deal.
Old school Kozilek comes in.
Joe, I don't know if I've conceded to a land more in my career than Tabernacle of Pindavale. I think that's the one that I've just straight up conceded to the most.
Well, to offer another perspective on this board state, the land I've conceded to the most is probably to Cloudpost.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, because at least my deck can beat this one. I know that when you're playing Miracles, this is the actual nightmare, right? Like this is what wakes you up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat. So in the past, I've been playing in Legacy events and opens, and actually been paired against Cloudpost on camera, and it's hard not to feel like the coverage people are just laughing at me when they do that. Oh, they are.
I mean, what are you going to do? And then, you just get mopped up because there's virtually no way to beat it. Now, Justin can win with pressure. This is not, a zero chance matchup. He might even be favored going first in game 3 because he does have the tools to be able to deal with this with the Delvers and the Wastelands and the counter magic. So we'll see. This has been a cool match. We're starting off with today. Thank you for joining us. If you're here watching in the morning, we're going to be here all day on the Nerd Rage Legacy Open event here, and so we're going to see Game 3 opening hands.
Wow.
Brickman with a Wasteland and a Delver.
This hand is, if you could sculpt a 7-card hand, Joe, this is one of the ones you look at. This hand is very good.
Yeah, with the Force and extra blue cards, and we're only able to get our choice of red or green, not both. Conveniently, we don't even have green cards to gum things up. We're just on red cards. Yeah, this is a very nice hand. Tony also kept 7. So we'll see what he has to work with.
It's going to be one of the 1-mana artifacts or Elvish Reclaimer here on turn 1. I'll say, or Carpet of Flowers. And this is one of the ones I take a minute and think about forcing here.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that it certainly could be considered. And Justin was okay with that. And then Reclaimer comes in. So you can see the power of Carpet of Flowers. Comes in main phase 1, pass to main phase 2, trigger the card, make a mana of the color of your choice. Reclaimer comes in. So really a great first turn on both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking back to all the permutations of what happens if we force of will that Carpet of Flowers and how this game looks. And it's one of those things where if you don't do it and you win the game, you look like a genius, right? Like, you got to keep your brainstorm in your hand. You have an Arcanist in your hand that you're trying to maybe, get this flashes of brainstorm back with later in the game. But this is one of the matchups where I'm leaning on trying to disrupt them at every aspect that I can as early as possible. And when you have something like Wasteland and a Braid to kind of back this up, that might be enough to break their back over the first couple turns. Because now here's the thing. It's like when you have Carpet of Flowers in play, which we saw last game. Well, yeah, we only have one island in play, right? But you saw how much work Carpet of Flowers did last game. And the fact that, let's say Wastelands were happening last game, I don't know if it would have been enough since the Carpet of Flowers was doing so much work.
So we see here Pithing Needle, and we've already expended our Braid, which is our answer to it. So the Force is kind of required here.
Oh, no. I was going to say Veil of Summer is going to be a beating here.
And, yeah, so the extra mana provided by the Carpet of Flowers allows for this Veil of Summer to protect this Pithing Needle, and that's going to be naming Wasteland. And our brilliant opening hand from Justin's side really doesn't look that great anymore.
Oh, this is a beating too. Bajuka Bog actually from the hand here. It's so funny that the hand happens to be Hooting Mandrills, Dread Organist. Okay. Well, this game has been unreal.
Yeah, so the both players are, Justin had his opening hand that kind of looked great and doesn't so much anymore. Then Winter Orb off the top to really kind of slow down the other side. Also from the 12 post side, playing Bajuka Bog, that's nice, but I wonder if we have too many more good lands, because that's kind of not the greatest land to throw at this point, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, it kind of means their hand is a little lackluster, right? But it's hard to see them mulliganing a hand that had Veil of Summer, Elvish Reclaimer, a Pithing Needle, Carpet of Flowers. Like, these are all cards that are very good in the matchup. And when you're playing the mono green deck, you can't be too selective with your opening hands, right? Like, you don't have Ponder and Brainstorm. You just have to have faith in your deck that you're going to draw one of your 6 to 15 drops, right?
Yeah. Now, this Delver does flip, which is important. Justin really needs to start getting damage in before things get too out of control. Like drawing, he really needs to draw counters and pressure. He certainly doesn't want any more blue sources on the board to allow this Carpet to make even more mana.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about there might be a line later in the game if a couple more cards get in the graveyard where if you do find a green source, like let's say a fetch land, maybe you're supposed to fetch up a green source, wasteland your own volcanic island, and get a Hooting Mandrills into play that way to kind of mitigate the damage that you're going to be taking from Carpet of Flowers, but also get a threat into play as quickly as possible.
No, that's totally reasonable. So we see here Delver's going to come in again, but 12 is looking like a very high safe life total right now.
I gotta say, Floodstrain is a really good draw here, right? Because it allows him to put a land into play that doesn't get a trigger from Carpet of Flowers. Like, it doesn't add another quote-unquote island into play for Carpet of Flowers to add more mana, but it allows the Delver player to have up 3 mana for Force of Negation here this turn, if it's relevant. But I was about to say, Force of Negation doesn't stop Primeval Titan.
No, it doesn't. And this is really going to get things cooking for Tony's side. And we again see the Carpet of Flowers. This is kind of we have 5 land in play and are producing 5 mana, which is not something the 12-post deck is ever wanting to do, but that's going to change real quick here. The Carpet adding only 1, getting us to 6. Primeval Titan comes down, and I imagine our mana, we could be getting 2 Cloud Posts. We could be getting 1 plus a Glimmer Post. There's options here. All of them are good.
You have to figure out, if you got to know what's in the green player's hand, right? Like, are they trying to resolve a 12 drop next turn?
Right.
Do they need more mana, or are they just trying to survive from here? Do you go get something like, a Tabernacle, or do you go get something like, some other one of their utility land kind of things going on here? When you're in this spot and you get to kind of like make this choice, you know that you're winning, right? You know that you're like super far ahead. Was this a concession?
I'm not sure what happened there.
Production is trying to figure it out right now.
Yeah, we'll get it straightened out. Like I was saying in the introduction, this is our first event we've done. We're kind of during this shutdown period of coronavirus. We've been progressing upwards. We had recorded matches with recorded coverage, and then we had recorded matches with live coverage, and now we have live matches with live coverage. So we're progressing into being like a legitimate actual studio here.
Yeah.
But there are going to be hiccups along the way. If you have feedback on this, we have an email address, nervagegaming@firemaxcon.com, as he's the one responsible for this nonsense today. So we'll see if we can get the end of this match back up.
Plus Meat Max.
I don't know what you're talking about there. I was just shouting out our producer.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, so we'll find out momentarily if this match is still being played, and
so I'll tell you what, let's go back and think about turn one as well. This game, and I think these are some of the most important turns in the Delver deck, and it's easy to say that, right? Like turn one is important, right? Turn one Delver, and how you are going to interact with your opponent and how you're going to disrupt them is important. And it's one of those things. It's hindsight, right? Like it's always easier to say, "Oh, it was correct to force of will Carpet of Flowers there," but I feel like Carpet of Flowers immediately resolved when it hit the stack, right? Like like F2 or whatever was clicked immediately, and like maybe we need to think about it for a moment. Like, what's the context of our hand, right? Our hand is Force of Will and a blue card. Yeah, it's a Brainstorm, and that's like the most powerful card in the format, right? Like it's literally the format defining card.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how good that card is if you're losing and cannot beat what's on the board, right? Out of the Delver deck, right? And so the rest of the cards in your hand were pretty much Wasteland and Abrade. So you have a plan, right? Like you have a threat. You need to disrupt them enough that the threat has, 5 or 6 turns to attack to kill them. You have an Abrade to deal with either a map or a Pithing Needle that were to come down in the next couple turns to make sure that your Wasteland is good enough, right? So with that plan, with those cards right there, if your Delver flips, like if you're lucky and it flips on turn 2 or whatever, which let's be real, all Delver players flip their Delvers on 2. You're not a real Delver player if you don't. Yeah, you're not a real Delver player if you don't flip it blindly. With that in mind, you're looking at possibly getting 4 to 5 attacks in with your Delver before they do anything that kills you. You're also drawing cards every one of those turns, so you could find something else. Like if you draw a Ponder, a Brainstorm off the top, you're in a really, really good spot, right? So I've got to say, if I was sitting in that spot, I give a really good long think about Force of Willing that turn 1 Carpet of Flowers, and I probably find myself doing it.
So definitely we can talk about options that Justin had in this game. Like you're saying, game 1, there's a big decision to be made there. On turn 1, on turn 2, we chose to use our Abrade to kill the Elvish Reclaimer. Completely reasonable, but those Abrades are really primarily there, I would think, to kill the Pithing Needles. And then we saw the Pithing Needle come down. We didn't have our Abrade anymore. Now, we got blown out by the Veil Summer because we still had the Force. But certainly, and this is kind of what you want to see in complex games like Legacy, where there's lots of options, lots of things going on. We saw some choices that were made. Now, maybe the choices were correct and things just didn't go your way. That definitely is something that happened. But we saw on turn 1 and turn 2, important decisions had to be made that are hard. And I think you're completely fair in saying that it didn't seem like a lot of thought went into it on turn 1. Whether the right decision was made or not is something that probably deserved a few more seconds of contemplation. But this is something that really one thing that differentiates some of the more powered formats, the older formats, from something like Standard, where games could be complex later in the game in lower powered formats, but you're not seeing like, okay, I'm playing my dual land, my shock land tapped or untapped.
Yeah.
Like that's really all that's going on early in a game of Standard. Where in Legacy, you have to start making important decisions very quickly.
And we can talk about, other formats too for a second as well. Like, I've been a pretty vocal person against what's going on in Standard right now, right? Like, I'm really glad that we're not going to see Grove Spiral in a game of Magic today. Let's hope not. I wouldn't be surprised if it happened somehow, right?
I mean, we have his brother, Uro, though.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
We have crop rotation. We don't need that stuff here. Yeah, we got the powerful versions of the card. But when I think about Standard, right, and when I think about the construct that's going on there, I really like what you said there. Like when your turn 1 decision is, do I take 2 off my land? A lot of times, or scry off my temple, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I have found that Standard has come down to this microcosm mostly. When you're not looking at Team of Rec mirrors and stuff, it's how do I get the maximum out of my 3, 4, or 5 drop? How do I get the maximum effect out of it? And then how do I mitigate the effect out of my opponent's 3, 4, 5 drop the most, right? Like, how do I make their cards the worst possible and mine the best possible? Because everything is so powerful now, right? Like, we've seen a lot of power creep.
Yeah.
When you get to Legacy, there is that going on, right? But not as much because the game is so complex and diverse in the first couple turns and things matter so much, right? Like, I can't tell you how many times in my career, especially in matchups against you, I know I've done this where I've Force of Will to turn 1 top out of you. I've literally 2 for 1 myself to stop your divining top. because I understand how good that card is in the matchup. Also, it depends on the context of your hand, right? Like, like that's why I talked about it. We're thinking about Force of Willing that turn on Carpet Flowers. Let's think about it logically, like what's going to happen over the next 4 or 5 turns, because that's how you have to think as a Delver player. Like a lot of people, when they think about Legacy, I think Delver players get kind of they get this. Okay, I was about to say, I think we just got the update that Justin lost in this match. I kind of felt like that's the way it was going to go. So it looks like correct me if I'm wrong, the mono green ramp player won this match.
Right. So it sounds like, and which, I mean, with the Primeval Titan, comes into play, things frequently go badly. And it does sound like the Tony Murata did win that match to take down round 1. So sorry we didn't get to see the last probably turn or so of that match.
It didn't last very much longer, for sure.
Yeah, but it was in. So we're going to go through, I think we'll have some live reads here, and then we'll get on with the rest of the event.